Good morning, Andover. It's a beautiful day outside, so let's try it again. Good morning, Andover. If we can take a moment and show our appreciation for the beautiful music played by Forrest Imold, class of 18. My name is Mrs. Savino, and I have the great privilege of being the director of the Alumni Engagement Office here at Phillips Academy. Your Andover family is not just on campus, it is around the world, and it is 25,000 strong. Today we are here to recognize 4 individuals within that family. To open our program, I'd like to recognize Susan Yuri Donahue, class of 73, chair at the Andover Alumni Award of Distinction. Susan.
Good morning. I am Susan Yuri Donahue, Abbott class of 1973. Last class of Abbott. For you students in your day-to-day life, it can be easy to overlook that you are being prepared for what comes after Andover and after college or whatever else follows Andover. That preparation is fundamentally how you may be a meaningful member of society. It is similarly easy to overlook that you will all be alumni of Andover, a worthy identification all by itself. As alumni, you will always be able to reflect on what your Andover experience means to you wherever you are at any point in your life. Today is the Finney Origine Pendant All-School Meeting. That special identity started in 2011. It is intended to feature distinguished Andover alumna or alumni who return to campus to share insights, perspectives, and lessons learned from and about Andover and beyond. Neither Andover nor Abbott, through all its wonderful years, would claim credit for all an alumnus or alumna's accomplishments. However, if indeed the end truly depends upon the beginning, then it seems not an exaggeration to believe that this great school and all its historical settings did play a role in shaping the lives of the remarkable alumni who appear at this all-school meeting. Today's meeting is a different version of the Finney Origine Pendant All-School Meeting in that it is the setting for presenting the 2017 Andover Alumni Award of Distinction. The Award of Distinction was inaugurated in 2012. Its purpose is to recognize and honor alumni of Phillips Academy or Abbott Academy who have served with distinction and exhibited leadership in the arts, sciences, letters, humanities, or another significant field of endeavor. The award also strives to connect current students, faculty, and staff with these inspirational role models through a variety of opportunities for active engagement on campus. Each year, an award committee receives scores of nominees and is challenged to select from among many worthy candidates those it feels merits this award. It is a daunting but most pleasurable task, as you surely can imagine. For each of the award recipients, their Phillips Academy or Abbott Academy experience was a beginning for them. Each of the 4 awardees being recognized today has much to say about their personal journeys than time in this all-school meeting. So I would encourage you to take advantage of their time on campus to meet them, talk about their interests and activities, and about your own aspirations. They will be in the mural room in Peresky Commons after this meeting, and you are welcome to come by to greet them, whether or not you encounter them in some other setting while they are on campus. The Award of Distinction Committee is delighted that the 2017 recipients will be introduced and formally presented with their awards by students. So I happily turn the program over to them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Solby Lim, and I am a senior in the class of 2018. And I have the distinct pleasure today of introducing Miss Genevieve Young. Born in Geneva, Switzerland, Miss Young lived abroad in London, Paris, Shanghai, and Manila, moving frequently as required by her father's career as a Chinese diplomat. While she was in Manila, her father was illegally executed by the Japanese forces shortly after Pearl Harbor. Arriving in the United States from the Philippines in the spring of 1945 with her mother and sisters, Miss Young began her Abbott Academy education on a full scholarship that fall. She then completed her education in 3 years and then moved on to Wellesley College, graduating with a degree in political science in 1952. A lifelong bookworm, her love of books and reading was fostered and developed during her school years. Miss Young first landed her post-college job at the publishing company Harper & Brothers as a stenographer, although she can neither type nor take shorthand. She eventually became the managing editor, leaving to become executive editor, and then finally, in time, vice president at J.B. Lippincott Company. Since then, she has served as senior editor at Little, Brown & Company, editor-in-chief of the Literary Guild of America, and vice president and editorial director of Bantam Books. Ms. Young is also taught as an adjunct professor at the Center for Publishing at New York University. She has been a literacy tutor and volunteered for many associations, including the Youth Counseling League and the Women's Media Group, both of which she served as board president. She has received the Distinguished Achievement Award from Wellesley College and the Matrix Award from Women in Communications. Currently, Ms. Young is on the boards of the Gordon Parks Foundation and of FJK Dance, a modern dance company. She enjoys the theater, ballroom dancing, playing bridge, and spending time with her large family, which includes her younger sister, Shirley Young, Abbott class of 1951. And like many of us, she still loves to read. It is with great pleasure to present the 2017 Andover Alumni Award of Distinction to Ms. Genevieve Young, class of 1948, for her contributions as a literacy advocate, editor, and philanthropist.
Thank you, Solvi, and thank you, Susan, for you and your committee giving me this great honor. I'm just really thrilled and happy and honored to be one of this group. So, finis origine pendit. The end depends on the beginning. It's really true of me because Abbott played a great part in making me the person I am today. And I could go on and on about it, but I really, in view of the fact that we have limited time, I'm going to focus on just one way that Abbott formed me. This is the story of how I found my lifetime career in book publishing in the Chickering Room in the library of Abbott Academy. Unfortunately, it's been torn down since then. But I'll take a running start by going way back. To begin with, I couldn't read until I was 8. I was born in Europe, had an English nanny, and spoke no Chinese. Nanny and I spent a ghastly year in Shanghai in a Chinese kindergarten where we couldn't communicate with anybody. My father was transferred to France and academically traumatized, I arrived at the American school in Paris in the middle of 2nd grade. Since I couldn't read, I was put into kindergarten, and I couldn't get the hang of it, mainly because the kindergarten teacher scared me. So one day, Miss Cabanales, my 2nd grade teacher, stood me across from her at her desk. She turned our reader around and started coaching me in a quiet voice. Suddenly, all those fuzzy gray things coalesced into words. I may have made this up, but I think the first sentence I read was, "Fred saw the squirrel." From then on, nothing could stop me. I read my whole 2nd grade reader overnight, and likewise the books that we could choose from the library once a week. I only owned one book about Babar the elephant. My father got sent to Manila, Philippines, as the Chinese consul general before I finished 3rd grade. There I got more books of my own as Christmas presents, such as Little Women and A Girl of the Limberlost, which I read over and over again. Then came Pearl Harbor, and the Japanese took over Manila a month later. They imprisoned my father and his staff and sealed all our houses as the property of enemy aliens because Japan and China were at war. To enter them was to risk being put to death. My courageous and enterprising mother moved us into a bungalow owned by an American family in Santa Mesa on the outskirts of Manila. Our American landlord had been put into concentration camp in Santo Tomas, and soon the homeless wives of my father's staff followed us into this 3-bedroom bungalow with their kids, their dogs, their cats, and a monkey. There were also 2 cooks who used to get drunk and fight out in the backyard with their knives, but no blood was ever shed. Anyway, there, all 26 of us, not counting the servants, lived in this 3-bedroom bungalow for most of the rest of the war, 2 families to each room. I still had my few books, and a new friend, Lucy, moved in nearby. Her family had one book I prized and read over and over again. It was The Complete Stories of O. Henry, a big purple book. And our neighbors across the street, the Buencaminos, had a complete set of the Tarzan books. And that's the first time I learned that you cannot believe everything you read, because in the first Tarzan book, Tarzan, who is really Lord Greystock, gets into his family's house and learns to read and speak English from reading the books in the house, which I thought was, even then, a little preposterous. I'd become a fast reader, and though I now had more things to read, I was getting tired of them. That was the story of my life, never having enough new books to read. I found a source of new books in the neighboring houses once occupied by American families, now by middle-aged Japanese civilian followers of the army, doctors and lawyers. Obviously lonely, they would come over to our house, but the adults would bolt inside as soon as they appeared. But I made friends with them because I wanted to get my hands on the books that the Americans had left in the houses. I treated these houses like a lending library, borrowing novels by Kathleen Norris and Faith Baldwin and bringing them back to take others. These novelists were the bestsellers of our era. I began to develop some critical judgment, noting that Grace Livingston Hill was not as good as Maisie Gray. Fast forward to April 13th, 1945, when my mother and my 2 sisters boarded a troop ship to come to America. 5 months later, I found myself at Abbott Academy, and it came about because Mrs. Alexander Calhoun had been a friend of my mother's in Manila. Now she was teaching at Abbott so she could be near her 2 boys. Her husband had been interned in Manila. Minna Calhoun persuaded Miss Hersey, Abbott's headmistress, to interview me when she was in New York, and the upshot was I was offered a full scholarship down to my gym suits and tennis rackets for the coming school year. I was admitted so suddenly and so late that there was no room for me in the Abbott dorms, so I was quartered with an Abbott trustee, Mrs. Chipman, who lived a few steps away. Everyone, the students, the faculty, the staff, was terribly kind, but I was a bit of a fish out of water. I had nowhere to be when classes weren't in section. In the afternoons, during the free periods after sports, there was nowhere to be. And the half hours between study hall and dinner. Then I found the Chickering room, and that became my refuge. The Chickering room was a small room off the main library, filled with comfortable chairs and shelves of books to be read for pleasure, not work, not for study. For the first time in my life, I had access to more books than I could read. I just read and read, novels and nonfiction by writers barely remembered these days, Hugh Walpole and Francis Brett Young and John Gunther. I read books when I was supposed to be doing voluntary walks for our team. Our team was, the whole school was divided into 2 teams, the Gargoyles and the Griffin. I checked books out and read during study hall instead of doing homework. I finally got into a dorm after Christmas when a freshman dropped out, and there I read in a closet with a flashlight after lights out. The Chickering Room was where I first sensed the rich variety of stories that could be told, where I marveled at the vast mansion of words that is literature. It's where I decided that that was where my future lay. And so it did. I spent more than 40 years in the book business, first as a secretary, actually too dignified a title. My personnel designation was stenographer too, and then in a slow progression. Incredibly slow by today's standards, but that's another story, to become an editor. I often had administrative duties, but the part of my job that mattered the most to me was being an editor. Now, an editor's job is to produce books that people want to read. Publishing, after all, is a business. Editors are always on the lookout for new writing talent, so going to writers' conferences, reading manuscripts, and watching television, and keeping abreast of the culture. We think of book ideas and find a writer to write them. We cultivate literary agents who represent successful authors. Most important, we help a writer write the best book that they can produce. Some manuscripts need cutting, others may need characterizations to be strengthened. Sometimes there's a plot hole that needs to be fixed. Each manuscript, like each person, is different. I was in publishing for 40 years and can truthfully say that I loved every minute. Even when I was typing 8 copies of a book blurb on my typewriter with a brass platen in the days before Xerox. I can only wish you as much pleasure in your future jobs as I had in mine.
Hi, my name is Ava, and I'm a 3-year upper.
Hi, I'm Thaddeus, and I'm an upper.
And today we're going to be introducing the Alumni Award of Distinction for George Bundy Smith, class of 1955.
Raised in segregated Washington, D.C., George Bundy Smith attended Phillips Academy on a scholarship and was the only black student in his class of 1955. He earned a bachelor's degree in history from Yale University and later graduated from Yale Law School. He earned a master's degree and doctoral degree from New York University.
At the urging of Reverend William Sloan Coffin Jr., Andover class of 42, Smith, who was still in law school at the time, became part of the first Freedom Ride, departing from Washington, D.C. in May of 1961 with the plan to arrive in New Orleans. The Freedom Riders were attempting to compel the U.S. government to enforce the Supreme Court decision that outlawed segregated transportation. Smith was one of 11 Freedom Riders who were arrested when they ordered coffee at a whites-only lunch counter at a bus terminal in Montgomery, Alabama.
Smith continued his civil rights activism after law school, joining the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, as well as helping civil rights lawyer Constance Baker Motley draft briefs for students James Meredith's successful challenge to the University of Mississippi's refusal to admit black students. He was appointed to the New York Civil Court in 1975 and served as a New York Supreme Court judge from 1980 to 1986 before joining the Appellate Division.
Smith served as a judge for 14 years on the New York State Court of Appeals, the state's highest court. Appointed by Judge Mario Cuomo in 1992, Smith was the third black judge to serve on this court and authored the 2004 decision that effectively ended the death penalty in New York. His numerous awards and honors include an honorary Doctor of Law degree from Fordham Law School, the honorary William Brennan Award for Outstanding Jurist, presented by the New York State Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and the Spirit of Excellence Award from the American Bar Association's Commission on Racial and Ethnic Diversity. A former Andover trustee, Smith received the Academy's Claude Morphese Award in 1985.
Unfortunately, George Bundy Smith passed away on August 5th of this year at the age of 80 in his Harlem home. Today, his son, George Bundy Smith Jr., class of 83, will be accepting the award on his behalf.
It is a great pleasure to present the 2017 Andover Alumni Award of Distinction in honor of George Bundy Smith, class of 1955, for his contributions as a judge, freedom writer, and civil rights activist. Thank you.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to come back to Andover. I love coming back to this place. I just want to take a moment to recognize my sister Beth here in the front row and my mother Aileen. And it's especially exciting to see Mr. and Mrs. Edmonds here this morning, dear friends of our family. Head of School Palfrey, faculty and staff, students, thank you for inviting me here today. I love coming back to this place. It's a very special place for me and my family. I actually got married here in the chapel in 2009, and the last time I was on this stage was in 2011 with my dad at an all-school meeting. Andover is open to youth from every quarter of requisite merit. Whenever I hear those words, youth from every quarter, I think of my dad. He came here in 1952, leaving behind segregated schools in Washington, D.C. When he was a child, blacks and whites could not go to school together. As you heard, my dad was the only black student in his class. I will always remember the stories he told me about members of the Andover community who embraced him and made him feel welcome. He talked to me about faculty members like the Luxes and the Mackeys. Not long after my dad died, I received a letter from Jack Doikus, one of my father's classmates in the 1950s, and he reminded me that he used to play basketball with my father every weekend. Another a member of the Andover community that tried to make him feel at home. My dad did very well here, graduating magna cum laude. He went to Yale and Yale Law School, as you heard, and eventually got his master's and PhD at NYU. My dad believed that education was an opportunity to be grabbed and held tightly. Andover was the foundation for his success later in life. As you heard, one of his great achievements was becoming a judge on the Court of Appeals. And the notable case that I will always remember is the decision he wrote ending the death penalty in New York. If you read about my father, you'll learn that 6 years after Andover, he was part of that group of freedom riders trying to end discrimination. Think about this. Arrested for trying to order a cup of coffee at a whites-only lunch counter in Montgomery, Alabama. A cup of coffee. From a jail cell in Alabama to the most prestigious court in New York, my father had a remarkable journey. I know that if he was here today, he would tell all of you students to study hard. Take advantage of all that Andover has to offer. He would tell you to give 100% of the time. He would also tell you to treat people with compassion and respect, especially those who are disadvantaged. Be kind to those in the Andover community and wherever you go when you leave. Treat others like he was treated by Mr. Doikus and the Luxes and the Mackeys. My family and I wanted to share this moment with my dad. We know that he is with us in spirit, and we thank the committee for this great honor. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yanni. I'm in the class of 2018.
And I'm Chris, and I'm a 3-year upper.
And today we are introducing Dr. Dorothy Cheney, class of 1968. For more than 4 decades, Dorothy Cheney has focused her research on the communication and social behavior of non-human primates. Dr. Cheney and her husband, Robert Seyfarth, conducted their research on wild baboons in the Okavango Delta in Botswana. This work is documented in their book, Baboon Metaphysics, which was published in 2007. Dr. Cheney and Dr. Seyfarth earned their doctoral degrees in animal behavior in the University of Cambridge. They began to work with baboons under Robert Hind, building off of Jane Goodall's research. After working at both Rockefeller University and UCLA, the couple moved to the University of Pennsylvania in 1986, where Dr. Cheney is now a professor of biology. In addition to her research on wild baboons, she conducted research on mountain gorillas in Rwanda and vervet monkeys in Amboseli National Park in Kenya. These findings are described in another book they had published in 1990 titled How Monkeys See the World.
Dr. Cheney has researched how monkeys perceive and classify their vocalizations and explored kin recognition, reciprocity, and monkeys' knowledge about each other's behavior and social relationships. Her findings address several questions that are central to the evolution of the human mind. Why are primates so extremely social? What is the adaptive value of sociality? Why are our brains so highly perceptive to what other individuals are doing and thinking? Dr. Cheney's work as a biologist and researcher has been widely recognized. In 2016, she received the Distinguished Primatologist Award from the American Society of Primatologists and the Distinguished Animal Behaviorist Award from the Animal Behavior Society. In 2013, she received an honorary doctorate from the University of Neuchâtel, Switzerland. She was elected Fellow of American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1999, and in 2015 to the U.S. National Academy of Sciences in recognition of her distinguished and continuing original research.
It is with great pleasure to present the 2017 Andover Alumni Award of Distinction to Dorothy L. Cheney, class of 1968, for her contributions as a biologist, research pioneer, and educator.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for my voice, which has disappeared. This is an incredible award. It means more than anything that I've ever received, and it's I'm very intimidated standing here right now. So in an attempt to come up with something interesting to say today, I wrote to my Abbott classmates and to ask them what they would say if they were in my position. And it was clear from their many thoughtful replies that we all look back on our Abbott years with mixed emotions. But the primary memory that we all share is that we had each other's back. We may not all have been best friends, but we shared an abiding loyalty, and we fiercely supported each other. Now, some of our solidarity arose in reaction, doubtlessly, from the capricious and arbitrary rules that we had to put up with in the late 1960s. So just to give you a few examples. On weeknights, we could only listen to music between precisely 9 p.m. and 9:15 p.m., not 9:16, certainly not 9:20. You had to eat at least one cookie at mandatory snack time, which was not a problem for me, but and under no circumstances whatsoever should you ever talk to a boy that you might happen to meet or just bump into randomly on your rare occasions that you went into Andover. Now, I imagine that our teachers hated these rules, has been enforcing these rules as much as we hated obeying them. And what I remember best about my teachers is that they were really rigorous, as we've already heard, and they really wanted us to learn, and to learn how to think. They encouraged us to aspire to achieve whatever we wanted to do. So, with all of these opportunities, a logical question is, how did I come to study monkeys? It's certainly not a normal career. It's esoteric and perhaps even frivolous, given the state of the world. But like so many other decisions in life, it was in retrospect very unplanned and very lucky. I'd always intended to go to law school, in part because it was the path of least resistance. But Robert, now my husband, was going to Africa to study monkeys for his graduate degree, and I thought, why not? This could be fun for a year or two, and I loved it. We found ourselves in the middle of nowhere, observing baboons and documenting patterns of behavior that literally nobody had ever looked at before, perhaps because nobody really was that interested in baboons. And among other things, we learned that baboons are, in many respects, just like humans. Like us, they have insatiable curiosity about each other's relationships and a strong motivation to meddle in each other's affairs. Evidently, being a gossip and a busybody has a very long evolutionary history. And female baboons use this social knowledge that they acquire through all this observation to establish and form strategic friendships. It turns out that the females that do the best, the ones that experience lowest stress, live longer, and have higher offspring survival, are those with the strongest social bonds. But at the same time, it would be disingenuous of me to say that the sole motivating force in my career has been to solve questions about the evolution of the human mind. The honest reason is that the research allowed us to live in an uninhabited island in the middle of the Okavango Delta in Botswana, in an idyllic camp that we built miles away from the nearest human settlement, and it was accessible for most of the year only by boat. We did all of our research on foot, learning how to detour around animals like elephants and lions, at least most of the time. And I think what I prized most about that life was the illusion of control that it gave to us. Most of the problems we confront in life, the ones that cause us the most stress, are problems we can't control. An illness, a difficult relationship, climate change, getting into college, you name it. The problems we faced in the Okavango were tangible, immediate, and solvable. At the end of the day, you could lie back in your tent and say to yourself, today I avoided that hippo that was trying to bite my boat in half. Or, I shot the cobra that was living in the solar panels. Or, I repaired the water pipe that the elephant ripped out of the ground. Or more often, I totally failed to repair the pipe. The camp is flooded, but I'll try again tomorrow. Now, most people in this world never have the luxury to do what they love because they're worrying about where their next meal is coming from. We at Andover are immensely privileged to be immune from these concerns. Too often, though, we hesitate to take advantage of our good fortune because we feel constrained by the expectations that we think other people have of us. One of the most valuable attributes that a place like Andover instills is the confidence to take chances. So, if I were going to give any advice, I would say take a year off, or maybe take 2 years off before college or after college to do something tangible and gain control over at least part of your life. Learn how to repair a car, wire a house, escape from a hippo, whatever. And treasure your friendships and try to live like a baboon. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Wolnowski, and I'm a senior from Andover. I'm also a co-head of the Gender and Sexuality Alliance on campus, which has been very important to me since I first started at Andover, and I'm very lucky and happy to introduce Macky Alston, whose work and story are an inspiration. Macky Alston, a senior vice president at Auburn Seminary, works to equip faith leaders to stand for justice. Alston is an award-winning filmmaker. He founded the Auburn Media in 2002 and has since served as its director, innovating a range of programs related to religious media training for more than 6,000 faith leaders, including many of the most influential faith leaders of our day, on a wide range of justice issues. Alston's films include Love Free or Die, Hard Road Home, The Killer Within, Questioning Faith, and Family Name. Love Free or Die is a feature film about Gene Robinson, an openly gay bishop, and the international firestorm his consecration sparked. The film premiered and won the Special Jury Prize for an Agent of Change at the 2012 Sundance Film Festival. It aired nationally on PBS's Independent Lens series. Family Name, Alston's first film, is a personal documentary about coming to terms with his family's slave-owning past. Alston's willingness to confront whatever ugly truth might manifest itself about his forebears makes for an intimate look at American history. Family Name premiered in 1997 at Sundance, where it won the Freedom of Expression Award and later aired on PBS's POV. Alston has received the Gotham Open Palm Award for Outstanding Directorial Debut and Emmy Award nominations for 3 of his films, and appeared widely in the press, including on The Oprah Winfrey Show, The Today Show, and in The New York Times. He graduated from Union Theological Seminary and comes from a long line of ministers in the American South. He grew up exposed to the power of religion, politics, and the media as charismatic leaders on the left and right shaped society and history for generations to come. Alston also serves as Auburn Seminary's Vice President for Strategy, Engagement, and Media, and directs a program that equips leaders of faith and moral courage to speak out for justice through the media. It is a great pleasure to present the 2017 Andover Alumni Award of Distinction to Mr. Wallace M. Alston, class of 1983, for his contributions as a filmmaker, social justice activist, and educator.
Good morning. So, I don't deserve this award, but I'm grateful for it. And I want to thank this school and its leadership, and my friend Karen Salek, and my friend Abby Schumann, and George Smith, who was in my class. And mostly, just before I offer a word or two, I want to thank this place for giving me friends who have sustained me. Oh, come on, my friend's crying in the 3rd row. Every step of the way. And life, you know, it's got its ups and it's got its downs. And the folk with whom I sat in these pews when I was your age have held me every step of the way. And I can't imagine who I would be without you all. And so, you know, treat each other nice and hang in with one another. Who you are, who you really are, is the gift you were born to give to this world. And what you do with this one wild and precious life matters. Don't believe me? Listen to this. When I was at Andover, no one was out as a gay person. Not me, not my sweet boyfriend Bob, not the 10 or so others I've since come to learn were gay. We lived in fear of who we were, what would happen if people found out, and what was to become of us. When I came out to my dad, a Christian minister, in his church office a year after I graduated from Andover, he said that he loved me no matter what, but that the world was about to get brutal. He said that in all his years as a minister, he had met many in my shoes, and all of them had ended up miserable, scorned, and alone. He was sure I would die of AIDS, as was I for that matter, for the only time back then gay people were in the news was when we were dead or dying. Not knowing, I think, what he was asking, fighting for his son's life, he begged me not to call myself gay, not to be who I was. The first room of gay people I ever walked into was the weekly Monday night meeting of ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. Each week, a couple hundred people in New York City living with AIDS, caring for people with AIDS, or desperately in fear of AIDS, gathered to figure out how we could end the crisis, how we could survive. I learned at ACT UP that you can show up with 5 or 6 ragtag friends at what was then called Northwest Orient Airlines, which at the time refused to fly people with AIDS, and the next day read in the New York Times that the company had reversed its policy because your clever little demonstration got national attention. I learned that you could agitate to stop placebo-based drug trials so you wouldn't get the sugar pill and die in service of science. You could fight the pharmaceutical industry, the National Institutes for Health, and the way medicine is done, and accelerate the path to treatment that could keep a generation of your brothers and sisters alive. Once I realized that what I do, little old me matters, I shifted from the passenger seat of my life to the driver's seat. Instead of keeping quiet, I became a storyteller, a filmmaker. I'd been told that coming out would kill people. In fact, it saved lives, including my own. So I wondered what other secrets I was invested in keeping, what truths needed to be faced for more to be free. My first film, born of spit and grit and community, won an award at Sundance and got our story all over the news, from Oprah to the New York Times to the Today Show. It examined the legacy of slavery in the U.S. and my family's role in it as one of the larger slave-owning families in North Carolina. Called Family Name, the film told the stories of a range of black and white Alstons, my family name, and explored what happened when we had the conversations about race and racism in America we were all told never to have with one another. My most recent film is called Love, Free, or Die. It focuses on the first openly gay person to be elected bishop in the high church traditions of Christendom, Gene Robinson, the former bishop of New Hampshire. I followed him for 4 years and watched his courageous leadership, one guy, change the world in community as he lived in the light of who he truly is, believing in the belovedness of every living human being, including himself. While making the film, get this, y'all, I was asked to lead a research project at Auburn Seminary, where I work, on how to make the Christian case for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender equality that could defeat the Christian case against it in the minds of conflicted Christian voters. We cracked the code and were invited in 2012 to train clergy and organizers in 4 of the 5 states that had marriage equality on the ballot: Maine, Maryland, Minnesota, and Washington State. We won all 4 states. And in the 2 exit polls that were conducted, the Christian messaging we had developed and messengers we had trained were cited as a top determinant in swinging the vote. I could have followed my father's advice, society's best wisdom at the time, and hidden or denied who I am. I have friends from Andover who made that choice. But instead, because of the counsel I got here at Andover, because of the deeper message my parents taught me and the spit and grit of my community, I chose to live in the light of who I am and to believe that who I was made to be, who I really am, is the gift, really the only gift I have to offer the world. And what I do with this life matters. To my father's delight and mine, and because of generations of people living in the light of their truth, I did not end up miserable and alone. Close up on photo. This is my family. My daughter Alice Alston is in 9th grade, like some of you. My daughter Penelope is in 6th, and my husband, Nick, is older than that. But to be able to announce that we are legally and lawfully wed was something I could never have imagined when I was sitting in the pew when I was your age. If there is one thing I could plant in each of my children's hearts and in yours, it is the conviction, the knowledge that your life and what you do with it matters. I imagine that is, in fact, what my parents wanted me to know most of all, and it's my message to you. Thank you so much.
Before we adjourn, I have 2 final pieces of business. One is a thank you, and the other is of a different sort. The thank you is to everyone who had a part in today's event. The Andover Alumni Award of Distinction is a very special event. It's also a lot of hard work on behalf of all those who put it together. Many of our alumni have gathered here today who have to choose, out of 25,000 living alumni, a small handful to hold up to inspire our students. I'd like to have a round of applause for those alumni who serve in this particular way. Thank you. I hope we also might give a truly rousing Andover hand to our award winners, I'd like to ask Gene and George, representing his father, whom we missed this morning, and Dorothy and Macky, please to stand and let us acknowledge you and your family for your service. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you. I hope you felt that as well as heard it. Yesterday I had the occasion to be in a class, Schooling in America, and there were two questions asked of me that have been running around in my head since then. One was, and they were said more beautifully than I'm about to, but Emily and Yoko asked me about the choices one makes in one's life and how to consider how one might make the greatest difference. And Lila Brady asked about the point of school and the point of Andover. These are two fundamental questions. I answered neither of them well. I don't know if you ever have this experience where you do something less well than you wanted, and then for the next whatever, you're thinking about how to do it better. But to Emily, to Lila, to that entire class, I think the answer to these two questions is right here. I think that was a much better answer to those two questions. Thank you for beautiful words and inspiring lives. And to my mind, given the fall that we've had here at this school, where we've had a loss of a student, given the sense on my part that every day it feels like we have our flag at half-mast because of a tragedy in the world, because of Charlottesville, because of the hurricanes that have ravaged Texas and Florida and Puerto Rico and the region surrounding those, it feels like we are in such a hard moment in our world's history. But against that backdrop, to hear the lives that each of you have led, and George, your life and your father's life and your family's life, I have a sense of enormous hope that it is individuals who make such a difference through individual lives and by comprising institutions like Andover, like the church, like the institutions you've been a part of, that can make a difference and can turn around what feels like an awfully broken world. Thank you for that inspiration. Thank you for that hope. I'm enormously grateful. All right, I know we're at time, but I have one more piece of business, which is I am told that when alumni come back, they want to know what's really going on in the lives of their students. Please do not say exams are coming up. What students is happening this weekend? Hey, all right, very good. So a couple of pieces of business there. Get your t-shirts designed by Nina Goldthwait and Jin Yang Song, which are available in Susie's right now and lunches all week. You can go to the mural room and see these wonderful people, then go to Susie's. You can also sign up for your buses there if you haven't done so. But I actually think we should end with a little bit of good old-fashioned Andover cheer. I don't know if there's anyone here who might be dressed in such a way, inspired in such a way to come on the stage and help show a little bit of what Andover is like in 2017. Here, Chris, come over. You got it.
Hello? Oh, hi. Okay, so we thought it would be fitting to do a cheer made specifically for AE weekend, and it was one of our favorites. We will say some words, and you will say, red meat. And then when we ask, how do we like it, we all know that we like it raw. So.
All right, compete well, make us proud, have a great weekend. All school meeting is dismissed. Thank you.